St. Kitts strong and mask up.
I wear my mask to protect my beloved citizens.
Honorable Lindsey Grant, Minister of Tourism, Transport and Ports, Mrs. Carleen Henry Morton, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism, Transport and Ports, Mr. Nicholas Menon, Chairman of the Board of Directors, St. Kitts Tourism Authority, Ms. Cindy Deming, CEO of UDC, our taxi presidents, special invited guests, members of the media, good morning. I would like to extend appreciation to our stakeholders and the media for joining us this morning. My name is Raquel Brown, and I am the CEO for the St. Kitts Tourism Authority and your moderator for this morning's proceedings. The press conference this morning has come at a very critical point in the destination's continued phased approach to reopening cruise tourism. The destination officially opened its borders to commercial air and sea traffic on October 31st, 2020. And most recently, we welcomed back our first cruise vessel, the Seabourn Odyssey, on July 22nd. Today, Minister Grant will provide you with an update of the continued resumption of the cruise sector and provide critical updates on the destination's current position in relation to the destination's plan to rebuild the cruise sector safely. Minister Grant, I now invite you to give remarks.
Mrs. Carleen Henry Morton, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism, Transport and Ports, Mr. Nicholas Menon, Chairman of the Board of Directors of SKTA, Ms. Raquel Brown, CEO, SKTA, Mrs. Cindy Deming, NIAS, CEO of UDC, specially invited guests, members of the media, a pleasant good morning. I would like to thank you, the stakeholders, and the members of the media for joining us this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, on the 22nd of July, Thursday, 2021, we welcomed back our first cruise ship, the Seabourn Odyssey, home porting out of Barbados. To date, we have had 3 successful calls, the last being yesterday. Our travel-approved bubble-vaccinated tours have also been very successful, and we have had no breaches thus far. In May, the CDC no-sail order placed a halt on cruising from the United States. Cruise lines, in their best interests, decided to resume cruising from the Caribbean and Caribbean home ports. Governor DeSantis in Florida and the CDC are currently in an ongoing court battle to prevent the CDC from enforcing guidelines that restrict the resumption of cruises home porting in Florida. As I stand here today, Caribbean home porting is no longer an option, and Florida is now the main home port for the majority of our cruises. What does that mean for us? It means that the rules of engagement have changed. Florida's requirements are markedly different from the Caribbean, and they have special issues that we have to deal with. First, from Florida, we are going to have vaccinated and unvaccinated permitted to cruise. We still have not yet achieved herd immunity. Our most recent health statistics indicate that approximately 70.2% of the target population has received their first dose of the vaccine, and approximately 60% have received the second dose. We know that the Delta variant is responsible for 90% of the confirmed cases coming out of the United States. We also know that presently there is a surge in Florida as a consequence and a result of this variant. With all this, while we have done well to date managing the COVID-19 and vaccination rollout, it is still not enough for us as a destination to remove our restrictions. While an interesting decision to have both vaccinated and unvaccinated passengers for cruise ships home porting out of Florida, I am aware, you are aware, and we all are aware in the Federation that it increases our risk. And this is where we are, trying to find a delicate balance between the economics and the health of our country. It is really not an easy fix, and it is something that my team and I continue to labor over as we work with the Ministry of Health and the task force to mitigate any risk. I do not want to jeopardize your health, of course, but I also understand that you are suffering. I have had one-on-one discussions, I have sat in meetings, and on some occasions, I've tried to help. Some of you I know are at the point where you are losing your homes. We know that. At the point where you're losing your vehicles and the very items that you need to sustain your livelihood. We understand that. The Alarub vendors, the craft and the primate vendors have been asking me, when is cruise going to come back to St. Kitts and Nevis? And when will we be allowed to work? We have invested in improving the guest experience around the island, as you are aware. At Frigate Bay, we have embarked on the beach renourishment program, installed bathrooms and restrooms at both Cockleshell Beach and at Frigate Bay. And at Black Rocks, if you visited lately, we have installed a viewing platform and staircase. All of this was done in an effort to enhance the experience at these very sites. Everyone at these locations is now looking for the people to come so they can begin to reap the benefits and the rewards of these very timely investments. It really has been a trying time for St. Kitts and Nevis. Some of you are very much aware that the ships are in St. Martin and in other parts of the Caribbean. Those very ships that are in St. Martin were scheduled to be here in St. Kitts. I know that you are frustrated, confused, and trust me, I understand all of that. I had a meeting with the taxi presidents just Wednesday past, as they explained the plight of the taxi operators and those operators who were once very thriving. I know that you, the people, depend on the cruise for your livelihood. And it is one of those things that keeps me up all night. My team and I know that we need to get back to work, and we have not stopped working. Some of the challenges that we have encountered over the past few weeks include, but is not limited to, the following. 1, our testing requirements differ, and this is a significant portion. Our testing requirements differ from the cruise lines, as per the Florida ruling. We require the RT-PCR test 72 hours from embarkation port, and have since October the 31st last year. At this very time, no testing for vaccinated passengers from Florida travelers is required, as per the current CDC guidelines. The Delta variant, as it is right now, is the main reason for the increase in the COVID-19 cases in the United States, in Florida in particular. Just last week, had over 23,000 persons testing positive. I have been advised that this variant has a higher transmission rate and the impact greater on one's health. 5, no testing of fully vaccinated individuals obviously increase our risk. So the real question is, where are we going? With the Ministry of Health, we have carefully assessed the risk to the destination, and we are unable to receive calls from Florida until we can identify vaccination and testing protocols that allow us to achieve our goal of balancing the economics and balancing public health. For the month of August, therefore, the calls of the Allure and Symphony of the Seas have been cancelled. We will provide an update for the Celebrity Summit and the Equinox. However, Celebrity Summit will not call on August the 12th. In conclusion, I do not want us to lose hope. This has and continues to be an all-of-society approach. The situation with COVID will always remain very fluid. Yes, we need to be competitive, as our cruise line partners have options in the Caribbean, if I might add, at a dime a dozen. My team and I remain committed, remain undaunted in our efforts to balance both public health and economics. The Ministry of Health has been working with us, and we have been working with them to find that very delicate balance. This has been and will continue to be our goal. I will now take questions from members of the media. Thank you.
Minister will stay at the podium and take questions. I'm going to ask the media to please ask one question at a time, and we'll go in groups of 3. So please proceed.
Good morning to all. Some time ago, Glenn Bart from SK Newsline. Some time ago, you mentioned that the OECS had written to the cruise lines or to the FCCA, I believe. I can't remember which one. What has transpired to that sub-regional approach in dealing with the situation that we are in right now?
Thank you for that question. Yes, we did as a group, the OECS. We wrote to Governor DeSantis some time ago, indicating to him our displeasure in his decision in the United States. That position still remains fluid. As of today, I have not been advised that we've had a response to that. Safe to say that St. Thomas has taken the very said position that we have taken in terms of the OECS. So we are hoping that we stand together on this point, but you would appreciate that when we stand together, we lose together also, because the ships have persons outside of our OECS block, which they can go to, namely the ABC Islands, Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao, Bahamas, Bermuda, outside of our real grouping. So it stands to reason that we will just have to wait and see what happens from here.
Mervan Thompson, ZIZ News. The situation changes almost daily, if not weekly. With this announcement, what is the plan going forward for, let's say, another 6 months, at least until the end of the year? If this rule remains until that time, what will be done?
Yes, yes, thank you for that question. As you quite rightly said, the position is really fluid. And so as far as we are concerned, my team, we know where August stands. And the position as in August is this: we more than likely would have all cancellations in August, but for the celebrity equinox, which we're still trying to work out. So that takes care of August. I'm really disappointed, disheartened, because August was really going to be a bumper month for us, meaning that in the month of August we had scheduled, I think, around 10 ships. With the week of August 23rd being a real fantastic week for us, we would have had 6 ships, both the Allure and the Symphony, in that week. So it's really disappointing and disheartening. But we understand that we are in a position which is very fluid, and we deal with it month by month. We had a meeting with the Ministry of Health on Wednesday. On Wednesday of this week, we met with the Ministry of Health. And as we speak, the Ministry of Health is meeting with their team to see how we can, if possible, adjust our protocols to come to some amicable position which satisfies both the cruise lines and satisfies our position, bearing in mind our number one priority is keeping the health and safety of our citizens. So I would imagine that sometime in the coming week, when the Ministry of Health comes back to us, we can then come back to the media, come back to the people, and indicate if there are any changes in the protocols which may allow some ships to come in. As it is, that is at the moment. As you know, we have the Seabourn Odyssey coming in at Carambola, but, you know, I would say, like the taxi drivers and taxi operators, that's not really doing what we want it to do. Our mainstay is to have the ships come here at Port Zante in their numbers and then go from there. So, you know, we are working assiduously to ensure that our stakeholders are kept abreast and give them some hope for tomorrow.
On Brown from WinFM. We understand that there are cruise ships that are home porting in other Caribbean islands. Has there been any discussion on including those ships in our roster if possible?
Okay. As I had indicated before, yes, they were home porting in the Caribbean, out of Barbados and out of St. Martin in particular, but most of that has now dried up, and the cruise ship have moved back to Florida. Okay? The home porting in Barbados is the Seabourn Odyssey, which we are receiving at Carambola. The other one that home ports out of St. Martin is the Celebrity Millennium, I think it is. Summit, it's Celebrity Summit. That home ports out of St. Martin. The challenge with that is very, very simple. As I indicated, we accept as part of our protocols an RT-PCR test 72 hours before embarkation. What has happened is that St. Martin's policies for arrival into St. Martin is either the RT-PCR test or the antigen test. So what happened on the ship that was scheduled for, I think, the 11th, was it? 11th, 12th? What happened with that, whereas they had about 500 persons on that ship, there were about 20 individuals who did not have the RT-PCR test, but who had the antigen test. And our health authorities were not inclined to accept the ship with those passengers having had the antigen test. And so therein lies the challenge and the difficulties, which we are trying to overcome as I speak.
Minister, if I could just add to that, those ships also that are scheduled to home port out of Barbados, they'll be doing a southern itinerary. They will not be coming up north. So they will be feeding, for example, St. Vincent, Tobago, Grenada, Barbados. They'll probably be going as far as St. Lucia. So you may be seeing that there are some Royal Caribbean vessels that are home porting out of Barbados, and also, the Aruba and Curacao. But they will not be coming this far north. They were specifically set there to home port to feed the southern itinerary, which includes those chain of islands.
Thank you, CEO.
Good morning, I'm Sean Dixon, St. Kitts News Observer. How have the tourism stakeholders taken this decision, especially considering the difficult times they've had in the past 15 months?
Well, I cannot really speak for the stakeholders, but I can only imagine that they are disappointed, as we are. But I think they appreciate and understand that our number one priority is the health and safety of our citizens. And we are still working. We are still working with the Ministry of Health to see if we can find some common ground to accept the ship. So, as I said, we will come back to you very shortly and indicate if there are any changes in the protocols. We are very disappointed because we know we have been waiting for the last 15, 16 months without, a ship. We were very close in accepting them in the month of August. That has now gone, but we are still focusing our attention now on what will happen in September. And we are confident that the Ministry of Health will find a way to craft some protocols that will be able to accept the ships.
Good morning, German Abel, SKN Vibes. My question has to do, just a follow-up to Ms. Thompson's question.
Can't hear you.
Okay, sorry, I was saying, I'm German Abel, SKN Vibes. Just a follow-up to Ms. Thompson's question. The borders are scheduled to fully reopen in October. How is this impacting that scheduled reopening, and how is the Ministry of Tourism working to fit cruise into that actual full reopening in October?
Well, we have said that we are gearing up to fully open in October. That is still on the books. You would also appreciate that cruise tourism is a special category of persons who begin to St. Kitts, and obviously we'll have to have some differences of protocols for cruising as against arrivals by air. Those we are working out, those we had organized, in fact, because all of the protocols that we would have worked out over the last couple of months, and CEO and PS, you can correct me if I'm wrong, all of the protocols that we would have worked out were worked out bearing in mind that we were home porting in the Caribbean. It is now that just lately now, the cruise ships have moved to Florida, and so that has caused a difference of protocols because of Governor DeSantis' ruling or decisions in Florida, which has really caused the uproar, so to speak, in the industry, and we are still trying to work those out. I can tell you that as I speak, I think that Antigua, for example, are not accepting at the moment or on our same protocols, and there are other countries doing the same. But you would also appreciate that those who are outside of our remit, meaning, for example, St. Martin, which is Dutch and French, the BVI, which is still under British rule, they have different protocols. And so for us in the OECS and in the wider Caribbean, we are trying to stick to a set of protocols that are the same, so to speak, And so we're trying to hold one voice on this matter.
David Brandy, Limega Taxi Association. Good morning.
Good morning.
Having heard that the Southern Caribbean, that ships are now heading there, is there any frightening approach that we may lose those ships if customers, if guest tourists would have already booked to those islands? Is it not worrying that we won't get back Allure, Symphony, and those other ships to our shores? And I pray and hoping that the authority will continue to speak to the health authorities so that we can strike a balance. We understand health comes first, because as wealthy as one can be, without health, that individual won't be able to enjoy their wealth. And so, if the OECS can get together, strike the hammer a little harder, work with the health team, I think, with the health team that is, I think we can achieve our goal. Again, I'm a bit worried that if ships can't come here now, I'm going to use an old phrase that might later be told to us. Only them that share the sour can now share the sweet. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brandy. I'm going to ask the CEO to answer that question.
Thank you, Mr. Brandy. The vessels that are home porting out of Barbados, they're smaller vessels such as the Vision and Grandeur that safe harbored here. Barbados cannot take Oasis class ships, so Allure and Symphony would not be home porting out of Barbados. The vessels that have to Oasis class vessels that are home porting out of Florida really can only home port out of Florida or St. Martin, or for example St. Kitts, if we had enough room stock, because we have a pier that can provide that facility. Barbados' pier cannot provide that facility to dock those type of vessels. The vessels that usually are going to be home porting out of Barbados are 3,500 or less. Also, it was a cruise line decision to start developing southern itineraries. However, please note that Florida is the main hub, Miami and Port Everglades, the main hub, Fort Lauderdale for the ships. So when we think of Royal Caribbean, we think of Carnival, we think of Norwegian, we think of Princess, we think of any of the large cruise lines. They home port out of Florida, MSC also. I'm not speaking specifically to Costa or to AIDA, because those home port out of Martinique or Guadeloupe in the season. They're still debating if whether or not that will happen, because still the concerns of what is happening in Europe. So I just wanted to build that context, because I know when we hear Symphony, we hear Allure or we hear Oasis. Those Oasis class vessels, they have very few ports in the Caribbean that they can go to. Right now, they will be feeding the Western Caribbean and the Eastern Caribbean, St. Martin, St. Thomas, and also Labadee and their home port in in Bahamas. But for us, they really would like us to be on the itinerary. They know what St. Kitts has to deliver. So we really are working with the health officials to try and find that delicate balance.
Is there interministerial discussions for persons who have been affected for the past 15 months and and will continue to be affected for the foreseeable future. Should they transition from tourism to something closely linked? Can they do something else in government, even temporarily? Is that kind of discussion taking place?
Well, that's a hard question. We as a cabinet, we've always been discussing these matters. As you would recognize, we know the challenges and the difficulties that are pervading the industry. And when we think it's at a point that's critical, we find a way via stimulus packages to deal with that. However, I do not believe that stimulus packages are sustainable. And so hence we have to do what is necessary to get the industry up and running. I know it's been a challenge for a lot of people in the industry, and some have, as you say, transitioned to other jobs that we understand. There are some who can't, and those are the ones that we have to ensure that we fight for and make sure that we put them in a position that they can maintain their livelihood. And so that is the point we're at. Again, you would appreciate we're in a very fluid situation. Last month, we thought we would have the ships here because everything had been worked out. And this month is a different matter. Come September, it's something different. So it's really a drain mentally and on our physical being and on our resources, because we have to be in meetings for hours every day, trying to predict what is going to happen and try to adjust accordingly. And so we understand the pressures of the job at this time. And so we are doing everything we can do because, believe it or not, tourism is our lifeblood and our livelihood. We have 6,000 plus persons directly or indirectly depending on us for their livelihoods, and we have to fight for them. So we continue as a team to fight daily. We are fighting. We want the ships in. So it's, for want of a better word, it's a battle, really, between ourselves as tourism stakeholders and health authorities. But that is it at the end of the day, because the health authorities have to maintain the fact that persons need to be healthy. And while I'm on that point, the Delta variant is going to come. Whether it comes by air or it comes by sea, the Delta variant is going to come. The only defense is vaccination. When it comes, it's going to come looking for the unvaccinated. That's the reality of it. And so, again, we beg, we plead, we urge persons who have not taken the vaccine to go and take it. You only have to look to the BVI. When we had 200 cases, they had 13. BVI now is topping 3,000, I think it is, with 30-something deaths. This is a serious variant. And so I'm just urging those who have yet to take the vaccine to go out and take the vaccine. Because whether we like it or not, the Delta variant is going to hit our shores, whether by air or by sea. It's coming.
Minister Grant, given so much uncertainty surrounding the cruise tourism sector, what is really happening now on the land-based side of things? Because we hear very little about what's happening there. What is the situation with our marketing program? Has that completely ceased, given the situation all over the world? So give us an update on that.
I will pass that question over to the CEO.
Thank you, Minister. No, our marketing has not ceased. We began in January of this year, positioning the destination in regards to our messaging about us being a safe destination, we're an adventure destination, and how we manage COVID. It led off with Minister Grant doing quite a few PR interviews in different sectors, different gateways and feeder markets in the US. And once we did that, we actually launched a campaign on Valentine's Day, and it was a simple campaign, a photo contest, to get more people to become aware of St. Kitts. And that photo contest was basically to submit your wedding picture in a sweepstakes competition, and we do have winners that will be coming here in November. With that competition, as simple as it was, however, we got 400,000 persons into our database from 42 states in the US. And I'm specifically speaking to the US market because at this point in time, we have not been able to market for the UK because we do have a travel restriction. And for the Canadian market, we would not start marketing until summer because it's a seasonal flight. But with that campaign, we were able to launch our promotion 5-day getaway, which started on April 1st, and persons could travel from April 1st to September 5th. The booking window was from April 1st to July 31st. We saw for as early as May, our load factors on our American 3 times a week flight, it increased from an average of 24% load factor going to as high as 59%. In fact, with that, American Airlines has decided to add back our daily flight November 2nd. So we'll have our daily flight starting November 2nd, which I believe is a Tuesday. And that flight will run for the rest of the season and for the rest of the year unless something dramatically happens. The US remains our #1 market. We see persons wanting to come to the destination. However, we've gone from 14 to 9 to now 4 days for the quarantine. We only accept vaccinated travelers, but there are other destinations that are only requiring 24 hours, an RT-PCR test. So it's still very competitive in our set. However, we are rebuilding tourism. We see the numbers and we see the demand for the destination. We continue to keep our message as it is, that we are the traditional Caribbean. We're a destination for you to come, to relax and unwind, embrace our culture and heritage, and you don't have to worry about somebody harassing you in a safe environment. And we know that is resonating because the persons that actually come on the plane, they do speak to that. They're coming to a safe destination. I had that experience when I traveled recently. They are the demographic. They're 47. They have children. They want to leave their children behind because they've been cooped up with them for the last 15 months. So what we're working with health is really trying to see if we can get that 4 days down to something less to make us a little bit more competitive, and hopefully for October that will what it will be. We've seen the Delta Saturday flight from Atlanta return, and it is still going strong. We will hopefully see an increase in that for the winter in terms of the number of persons on it. We've also seen the Charlotte flight return in June. So for us, we're slowly rebuilding, and in December, the Saturday before Christmas, we will have the United flight return out of Newark. We are still waiting to hear about JFK for both Delta and American. So in light of what is happening, we are continuing to market the destination. We're seeing a strong I would say turnaround in terms of the demand, but we also have to remember that there's competition out there. And it's not, let me put it this way, it's not about cost. It's very interesting because we see in Miami, persons are willing to pay for the same price, $500 a night, as they would for Park Hyatt or for Four Seasons. What it is the testing if you are vaccinated. It is those requirements and the quarantine because persons want to go on a vacation. So we continue to, and we will through for Q3 and Q4, we will have a strong campaign in the marketplace. We have to, though, keep the window open very long, the booking window. In the past, we would have done it for probably 4 weeks. We now have to have it for 12 because we need to allow the potential traveler to have that flexibility. But I want us all to remember, when the destination reopens, we'll only really have 1,200 rooms because some of our hotels, such as Sugar Bay, Timothy Beach, Owali, for example, in Nevis, there are some requirements that we will still have to meet if we're going to have quarantine in terms of security. And so we will not have our full complement of 1,800 rooms in our room stock. But at the end of the day, the primary hotels that are the lead will be open and they will have their full room complement.
Good day. How will herd immunity impact the decision announced this morning, and also the sector as a whole? Meaning, if we were to achieve herd immunity in the next few weeks or months, how will the decision announced today be reconsidered, and how will it impact the sector going forward?
It's a good question, but it lies with the answer really lies with the Ministry of Health in terms of what do they consider to be herd immunity? That's at the point that they're comfortable with, and what changes in protocols will arise as a consequence of that. That's really a health issue, so I can't really answer it. Safe to say that we anticipate that when we arrive at that point, herd immunity, that we will have some changes in the protocols and easing of the protocols that we have presently.
Morning again. Minister, just where you left off, realistically, this is more of a direct question. Realistically, do you believe that the remainder of 2021 is a dead season for cruise? And just to add to that, I want to get from you, because this question is being asked a number of times, over and over again. What is the difference between a travel ban being imposed on the UK, India, Brazil, while all the variants present in those countries are present in the United States? What's the difference between banning those territories as against the United States?
Thank you. I'll let the CEO answer the last one. I'll answer the first.
Thank you, Minister. I'm not an epidemiologist. I am not a virologist. I am a CEO of the Tourism Authority. As it speaks to, I'll answer the latter part first. Where we see the variants, because especially in the US, the Delta variant is responsible for 80% of the cases right now. So we do agree that we see that the BA flight and the travel ban, because we'd only be allowing vaccinated travelers back into the Federation, we see it important. We see it as a definite decision that it could happen. It should happen right away because of what is happening in the United States. So we do agree. However, we have to trust our CMO and Dr. Wilkinson and their team, because they're the ones that are making those decisions and they advise the cabinet. For us, in terms of the cruise season being dead, well, dead would mean that there would be no cruise ship coming, and Seabourn Odyssey is coming. Yes, we realize that Seabourn Odyssey only ports, it only berths at Carambola, but it is still a benefit to some. If you can remember, from as far back as in April, we said we'll be rebuilding tourism. This is a very hard situation. Rebuilding doesn't mean that we're going to, and I've said it, so I want to manage expectations. We will not be having 3 cruise ships a day. And that's a very hard position for us to be in and to understand and to realize, because we're not accustomed to that. We have seen from around 2015 where there was not a day that we didn't have ships. We had ships on a Sunday. Some destinations don't even experience that, and they have been doing cruise for many, many years. For example, Barbados. Barbados has never received an Oasis-class ship. St. Kitts is a marquee port, the only marquee port in the East, in the OECS group, even ahead of Barbados. So it's a very difficult situation, and we're rebuilding. It is fluid. Is it dead? No. Is it meeting the needs of everyone? No. But we're rebuilding. And I think that is what we have to focus on, and that is what keeps our vision, and that is what carries us through in terms of when we're meeting with our cruise line partners. That is what we're doing when we're meeting with the CMO and her team and the task force. It is a situation where COVID-19 is real. The cruise lines are very clear that they cannot have a situation as they had with the Diamond Princess and the other princess ship that was out in California. They know that if they do not meet the regulations and they do not meet the standards that are put on them through the CDC, they know if they have another outbreak and a ship has to go into isolation, the impact of that for every cruise line is going to be devastating. So they're very, very clear, and I had the benefit, unfortunately, the minister was unable to go, but in June, I was able to attend a conference with cruise line executives, all the presidents and the CEOs of the cruise lines that come to St. Kitts, with the exception of the European lines. And it was made very clear, they understand that if it happens to one cruise line, the impact on the industry, so they have to be working together. So when we have meetings with Royal, for example, we know that they're going to have discussions with Norwegian, they're going to have discussions with Crystal, with Carnival Corporation, which is Holland America, Seaborn. So we are very clear that when we have discussions, what we discuss with them as it speaks to our protocols, it doesn't stay with one cruise line. It's basically going for all the cruise lines in the FCCA. And no, personally for me, I don't believe it is dead. It's a work in progress, but we have to manage expectations. And I will say it's not dead, it's rebuilding tourism, cruise tourism.
You know, the CEO went and answered the first one also. That's fine, so you can answer the question.
Morning to everyone. Sylvester Charles, the St. Kitts Taxi Cooperative.
Morning.
So a few years ago, a certain journalist / radio host published an article that stated the reason why a certain cruise ship had canceled St. Kitts was because Minister Grant had raised the head tax, and so the ship sailed. I was able to correct some person by saying that could not happen because the tariff is set at the regional level with the FCCA. The question is, are you saying that we no longer have that accommodation where things are discussed at a regional level? I know COVID has interrupted a lot of our protocols. You mentioned Antigua observing the same position as St. Kitts. Apart from Antigua, are we on our own in the approach taken in terms of the ships being allowed to come here that are vaccinated or not? Secondly, and it's related, over the last couple of days, I've had to contend with taxi drivers and other members of the public who would have read an article that's making the round that says Minister Grant is the reason why the ships have canceled, because you have told certain cruise lines that you're only accepting up to 700 cruise passengers. It's out there. And as I said, I had to deal with some of my drivers. So we would like you to address that first, please, because people are believing it. It's designed for malice as far as I'm concerned. Even here, I'm getting texts from my taxi members. It is Minister Grant's fault. So it's important, sir, for you to address that. But first question, apart from Antigua, are we on our own in our approach to how we relate to the ships? Thank you.
Thank you. I will address the issue of the 700 passengers per cruise ship first. Like most people, I saw the publication, and the moment we saw the publication, we did two things, because the publication came from Royal Caribbean. We did two things. One, we called Royal Caribbean and we asked them to retract that position, because I said no such thing. So we asked them to retract that position, which they did. And then we issued a press release following that, indicating that that position never pertained. We never discussed anything like that, and it was totally false. So that was dealt with. We could never say something like that, because if we have an allure of the seas that brings in 5,000 plus, we will be shooting ourselves in our foot. So absolutely not. The Ministry of Tourism, the St. Kitts Tourism Authority, said nothing of the likes. And so we want to put that to bed and to rest, so everybody understands that. The other issue about the head tax, that we had raised the head tax, let me put it this way, that we have been speaking to the cruise lines for a number of years, in fact, for about 3-4 years, indicating to them that once the new cruise pier was completed, we would raise the head tax. All the cruise lines have been aware of that. All the cruise lines accepted that position. And so that is not a new position for the lines, and they understand that. So it's nothing about head tax being raised and they're not coming, because they knew that 4 or 5 years ago, that once we would have built the new cruise pier, that head tax would be increased. That was understood already.
Continuing along that vein, Minister, can we have an update on the arbitrary process?
Okay. The arbitration, that's what you said? The arbitration? Okay. As you would recall, the SCASPA is in arbitration with the CCC, which is the Canadian corporation, over some issues regarding the pier. That decision has been handed down. That position is on the review at the moment, in terms of whether or not SCASPA and the government would appeal such a decision. What I can say is that we didn't get everything we wanted, but we had certain areas of success, and so we are looking into it to determine what is the move going forward. I would say, however, it's nothing detrimental to the government of St. Kitts and Nevis. I can tell you that the Canadian corporation was indicating that SCASPA through the government should pay them somewhere in the region of $15 million additional to what the agreement was. And I can tell you in a nutshell, that went away, and that we just have, I think, $100 and something thousand that is in contention out of the 15 million which went away. So we're in a very good stead in terms of the arbitration process. It's just that over the next couple of weeks, we have our external counsel looking at the judgment to determine what next we do, if anything.
Minister Grant, just a while ago, there was a mention of about 500 rooms being available going into the next tourism season. But I could remember that there were a number of properties that were virtually ready to be opened, new properties, pretty large properties. Can you give us an update as to what has been happening with those properties, and what is the likelihood of them becoming part of the available stock?
Okay, you're very correct. There are a number of hotels that were just about ready to come on stream. Those have been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. I cannot say as I speak when they will come online, but we are hopeful that very shortly, in the next few months, we can see some progress in that regard. But the COVID-19 pandemic has really hurt those operators, and so we are hoping that, you know, we can see some progress over the next couple of months. But as we speak, they're not ready to come online to add to the room stock presently. See, anything else I should add? Okay.
Yes, Brandy again. Mr. Minister, we have had Seaborn paying a few calls at Carambola. I would like to know if any taxi drivers have been benefited from the calls that Seaborn has made over at Friars Bay. And I would like, after this press conference has been edited, for it to be broadcast and rebroadcast, because that will help me not to answer so many questions. Thank you.
In terms of the benefit to the individual taxi drivers, etc., I'm going to hand that over to the CEO, who is much more knowledgeable than I am with regard to those nitty-gritties.
I'm going to say no in relation to independent tours, and I'll explain why. It's not that the facility has not been made available. Seaborn and all vessels coming in have been briefed that we will be offering independent tours. They will be scheduled in between the main tours that are the pre-booked tours that are being dispatched through their ShoreX here. However, Seaborn has traditionally been and is continuing to be the type of vessel where it is a buyout of the destination of the beach club, where they are at this point in time, Carambola. They only select pre-booked tours. However, we have made it known to them there are independent tours that are available. They will be dispatched and managed through the Tourism Authority. However, we have not received requests to do so that we can have taxi operators who are in currently the rotation that are fully vaccinated and could operate a bubble tour, because those would be the individuals operating from RLB at this time. We have not received any such requests. We also knew that for Seaborn it would be very, very limited, because traditionally they don't take independent tours. So that is why we are really pushing, as Minister said, to bring those vessels such as Allure, Symphony, the Celebrity Summit, and the Equinox as soon as possible in the near future, because we recognize the importance of them to the independent taxi operators. I will just take one last question and then we will wrap up.
Just to follow up on the Seaborn issue, because last night on one of our radio program, there was a lot of criticism about the Tourism Authority or the Ministry of Tourism not directing the Seaborn to dock at Port Sante and allowing the shopkeepers to benefit from that. I think it is important to explain the nature of the Seaborn operation, not just for St. Kitts, but I think where it sails.
I'm glad that you raised that question, Mr. Bart, and so I will answer it head on. In fact, originally when we spoke with the Seaborn Odyssey, they were to dock 1 week in Port Zante and 1 week over at Carambola. Okay, so 1 week on, 1 week off. However, because St. Kitts is the only country that is allowing a beach day meaning that because of the facility at Carambola, they can lock off the institution, the company, and have a beach day. The cruise lines decided that they would do that because it was the only country on the 7-day itinerary was giving them the opportunity to do that. And so for them, it was a better sell in terms of what their guest experience was delivering. And that is what it is. It's a business decision by the Seabourn Odyssey. We were happy that they were coming here 1 week off. But the moment that only St. Kitts was giving them that opportunity, and I think on the last day of the itinerary, they felt it was a wowing experience for their guests and preferred to take that route. And that is why we arrived at that. I want to say, however, that even when we were speaking to the other cruise lines, and they were indicating that they only wanted ship designated tours, we, as the St. Kitts Tourism Authority, indicated to them that was not going to work because they had to find an opportunity for the independent taxi drivers and tour operators to make a living who had not worked for 16 months. We went out there to bat for them. And every occasion when we are dealing with the cruise lines, first and foremost on our minds is the taxi and the tour operators and the providers, the small man as they call them, because we know how far that dollar goes. And so that is why we ended up with, originally in the first phase, 2 tours for the independents, the island tour and the panoramic tour, correct? Island tour and the panoramic, 2 tours. We carved out for the taxi and tour operators. And we said we would do that at 10 o'clock in the morning on one and 1 o'clock in the afternoon on the other. That is the extent that we went to ensure that the ship did not get all of the tours and organize it for themselves. We made sure that the St. Kitts Tourism Authority, in conjunction with the Ministry of Tourism, ensured that the taxi drivers and the tour operators were protected. I could not have 500 taxi drivers who have not worked for 16 months, can't get any work when the ship there. I said, that can't work. My job is to protect you and your livelihoods and your families. And I will bat for you any day. And that is how I'll end the day's session. Thank you very much for coming.
Minister, Mrs. Martin just wanted to say something, sir.
I'm sorry.
Yes, Minister. Thank you. And CEO, Ms. Brown, I didn't think that we could end this session this morning without us reiterating. I think Minister had said it earlier, and Ms. Brown to some extent mentioned the whole idea of people getting vaccinated. And I think that every opportunity we get, that is going to be a message that we are going to preach. I think that had we been at a higher level of vaccination here in St. Kitts, we would be having a completely different conversation this morning. And I think that that is something that people, all of us, need to consider. Those of us who are vaccinated already, if we have family and friends, co-workers, whatever is the relationship that we have, if we have persons who are not vaccinated as yet, I appeal to all of us to pull those persons aside and to have a very serious conversation with those individuals about getting vaccinated. The more vaccinated we are as a population, I think we are increasing our chances of us getting the nod from health for us to begin to operate more, more broadly, ships coming in, flights coming in, and so on. I think that that is basically the concern, that we are not at a level as yet to absorb certain levels of risk. And I think that that is something that all of us need to bear in mind. What else can I do to make sure that we move this process along so that by the time, hopefully, October comes around, which is the time that we have basically been thinking about for a full opening of the sector, we are much closer to that target that we have set ourselves. 70% plus. Go way beyond that if that is what it takes, so that there is no doubt that we have arrived at the herd immunity that we have been talking about. So that is the note on which, with your permission, Minister, if we can end there, this whole appeal for all of us to get vaccinated. We have heard about the Delta variant wreaking havoc in so many different destinations. Just this morning, I was listening to the news, and they were saying that in Cuba, a number of hotels are now being used as hospitals, especially for pediatric patients and pregnant mothers. So everybody is very concerned. Everybody is appealing to their communities and to their populations to make sure that they get vaccinated. I'm sure it's no news to us that they're now referring to the disease as the disease of the unvaccinated, because primarily those are the persons who are coming down and are seriously ill and dying. Nobody is saying, because that is the argument we're hearing, well, you can get the vaccination and you can still contract the virus. That is so. But we are saying, and the science is proving, that persons who are doubly vaxxed, or they have had the maximum vaccination, depending on the type of vaccination, whether it's Johnson & Johnson, some vaccinations only need 1 dose. They're saying to you that once you are fully vaxxed, the likelihood is that even if you get ill, you're not going to be seriously ill, and you have significantly reduced your chances that you're going to die from the disease and the chances that you will transmit it to other people. Those are the things that we need to be focusing on at this very critical time. We talk about balancing lives and livelihoods. That is where the focus needs to be, so we get ourselves to that stage. Thank you very much. Please pass the message on.
Ladies and gentlemen of the media and our special invited guests, I would like to thank you for coming to our press conference today. And Mr. Brandy, we will make sure that we broadcast, rebroadcast, and rebroadcast, and rebroadcast so that you don't have to answer any questions. Okay, all the questions. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Think it's bad. Be Saint, get strong and mask up.
I wear my mask to protect my beloved citizens and residents of St. Kitts and Nevis. I invite you to do so too.
Show your love for St. Kitts Nevis and wear a mask.
Keep St. Kitts strong and mask up when you step out.
I wear a face mask for all the nurses, doctors, and other medical workers who are on the front line.
Do the right thing and wear a mask.
Show the world that we are St. Kitts strong and wear a mask.
I wear a mask so that St. Kitts Nevis remains a safe and healthy destination for me, for you, and our visitors alike.
To think it's sweet, me don't know about you, but me love singing.